Hey guys, it's me Reno from Snailworks Crochet, and in today's video I will be reviewing some granny square yarns. Now, for those of you who are familiar with my channel, you know that I am a very big fan of the Red Heart All-in-One Granny Square yarn, as well as the Red Heart All-in-One Flower Power. Not as much of a fan of the Burnout All-in-One Granny, but I like a granny square yarn. We on this channel love a granny square yarn. But as I was watching some other crochet YouTubers, specifically Michelle Jasic, she mentioned in her video that she had gotten her hands on another granny square yarn from a different brand. And so I tracked down the brand she was talking about and bought some. She only has this concept merino baby granny from Katia, but when I looked on the website, they had two other yarns similar to this. One is this fair cotton granny, which I think is pretty similar to this one, but the other is the Katia instant granny. I bought all these with my own money, and all this together was like $107, which is pretty pricey, not gonna lie. But this one is made of superwash merino wool. This one is also made out of wool, and this one is made out of an organic cotton. Also, it's one of those bougie fancy yarns, so that's why it's expensive, but still, it's a lot. Compared to the Red Heart yarn, that was like $12 for that entire skein. Yeah, this is expensive. But I do think it's a pretty interesting alternative for those who prefer, natural fibers and those who are more partial to thinner yarn. As I am filming this, I actually just finished watching Michelle Jasic do a review of the Merino Baby Granny, so I kind of have an idea of how it works. And I think the fair cotton yarn is in a similar boat. The Red Heart yarns, it's kind of like you make that motif and then you just keep making that motif. Whereas this yarn, you make like 24 squares, but they're all different ways of pooling, which I think is interesting. Whereas the Red Heart yarns, if you run out of the color, you immediately start into the next granny square. This one has some white yarn that it bleeds into and that you're supposed to save to stitch all the squares together. I thought that was kind of interesting, and I think this one might work similarly too. So I think I will hold off on reviewing these two for now and start with the Insta Granny. From some of the reviews I did see for this yarn, I think it's a little bit similar to the Red Heart All-in-One yarn where it is a granny square. So I'm gonna start with this. I never know how to open these donuts. So this recommends a 5 to a 5.5 millimeter hook. I know I should follow the pattern, but I'm gonna use a 6 because my tension's tight and I don't want to think too much. Okay, also, I'm looking on their website right now. This skein is $12.99 and it makes 3 granny squares, which little bit of a ripoff in my opinion, but we'll see. These crochet squares consist of 5 rows and 3 color combinations. I normally don't follow patterns, but I'm a little confused. I guess I'll just pull from the outside. That looks like enough for a middle. So because I can't find the pattern on the website, I'm just gonna do my granny squares the way I do my granny squares, which is with a magic ring and a stacked single crochet. I know they have a pattern on this website, but I don't think I can find it. I think I did a decent job at matching the color here, or at least close enough. Let me finish a square. I will say with the texture of this wool, I mean, it's like soft and stuff, especially for wool, almost like a roving, and it doesn't seem like it'd lend itself well to frogging if you messed up. Like it feels like it would just felt if you had to redo this over and over again, like I'm sure some people would. Some frogging, but I was able to fix it. Okay, I just finished my first granny square of this yarn. I will say first impressions, I do like it. With this one in particular, it's very similar to working with the Red Heart All-in-One Granny Square yarn, where you have to kind of adjust your tension and play around with it a little bit for the color changes to match up. But other than that, it looks really cute. I like it. I think it's interesting that they have a total of 3 colors versus like 5 separate colors. I think that makes it kind of unique. And I was very confused why I had this color left, but I looked at the website again. It said between each granny square, there's extra yarn in color 2, which is this purple color that you can use for joining the squares and also finishing off the borders. So I think that is interesting. So let me set this aside. So they basically give me this much yarn to essentially stitch together squares. Am I gonna use it? Probably not, but it exists. Now, according to this label, it makes 3 squares, which is not a lot. It's not enough to make literally anything. So if I wanted to make like a sweater or a blanket or literally anything, I have to buy more than one of these, and that's unfortunate. I will say, if you are somebody who likes the Red Heart All-in-One Granny Square yarn and also wants to work with more natural fibers, this is actually a pretty good alternative. It is more expensive because it's the same price per skein, but this gives you 3 squares, whereas the Red Heart yarn gives you 14 squares. And also the Red Heart yarn comes in more color combinations, but if you think the color combinations in the Red Heart yarn are ugly, then this might have a better color palette for you. Because it comes in 3 different colors, it's still like a 5-row granny square. So it's about the same dimensions as the Red Heart yarn, but I think because it's limited to 3 colors versus 5 different colors, it makes a more aesthetically pleasing square that's not as gaudy looking almost. And again, I don't mind the color palette of the Red Heart All-in-One Granny Square yarn, but I do know a lot of people think they're absolutely hideous. So if you do enjoy working with that yarn, but you want better color options and you also want to work with more natural fibers, I think this is for you. If you think $12 for 3 granny squares is absolutely ridiculous and you're insane and crazy, I also kind of agree with that sentiment. But, you know, I'd say overall, this one is not bad. I don't know what I'm going to do with the rest of this yarn or the squares I make with it, because I don't normally work with wool. 3 squares isn't enough squares to make anything. And if I were to buy more squares and make a blanket, I can't donate it because most charities don't take wool. So I'm a little stuck, but these are the consequences of my actions. Okay, I am done working on one of the cotton granny squares. This is it. I made it and I hate it. So one thing, and this is the issue I have with these yarns overall, is that I should have figured from, the first yarn that I tried of these 3 that the granny squares would start from the outside. Funny enough, I actually started from the inside because I like a middle pool. And so I was working on these granny squares and I'm like, some of these colors are not pooling correctly. They seem to be getting shorter and shorter. And that's when I realized, oh, I should be going in the opposite direction. So then I did that and I ended up making this and it pools nicely. I think every single color change is fairly smooth until the very last row, where you can see I have more red on the outside. then I have orange, and I have literally this much orange left. I used a 3.5 millimeter hook on this square, or did I use a 4? I don't remember anymore. It's been a week since I made this one, honestly, and stuff has happened since then. To some extent, I like it, but to some extent, I kind of hate it. It's not sparking joy for me. And again, this is what happens when I buy yarn for reviews. If I hate it, then I don't know what to do with it. It's a whole thing. I have a rough idea of what I might do with it, but I'm just gonna not make any more squares for now. And I now want to make the baby granny. And I think now that I know that you're supposed to pull from the outside, I won't have nearly as much trouble with it or as much issues. This one also says 3 to 3.5 size hook, which is what I have. Maybe I should try a 4 because my tension's tight, but whatever. And now I will be starting on the outside instead of the inside. And let me find the outside. In Michelle Jasik's video, she said she was able to pull from the center. So I'm a little bit confused what direction I'm supposed to be pulling this yarn from, because on the cotton one, I made the mistake of pulling from the inside, and it turned out I should have gone the other way, but like, I don't know. This is kind of an irritating yarn, honestly. And also there's like 5 different granny squares, so I don't know what to do anymore. Ugh, it's annoying. It's very annoying. I'm kind of doing the granny square in my own way, following any prescribed pattern, but like I also can't easily find the pattern either, so it's not very helpful. Okay, I think with how this one's color is pulling, it's one of those gradient granny squares, and I think I'm using it right. Okay, this is starting to warp a little bit. I'm gonna restart this. I think my hook is too small for this.
Bust some stash this year. So basically the premise is scrap yarn projects are ideal, but also any projects that can get through some stash that I've always wanted to make.
Okay, so I finished my merino baby granny square here. This one is one of the gradient ones, and it does look pretty cool. I like it. I like this a lot more now that I know you're supposed to pull from the outside. I don't like it enough to like buy this again, but it is what it is. I ended up switching to a 5 millimeter hook on the last row, and I still had about this much yarn left before I reached the white, which is where the cutoff is. And what I should have done is just used a 5 millimeter throughout the entire thing. Again, I have tight tension, so I've never used a prescribed hook anyway, but it's fine. It might be a little smaller than the cotton granny, either that or maybe I just did something wrong. I don't know, and I don't really care. And I guess that part concludes my review portion. I'd say overall, these granny square yarns are fine. They're obviously not Red Heart, and I think they're an interesting alternative to use if you want to use both finer yarn and just higher quality yarn, because the yarn quality is very good. Like the yarn itself is like very nice and smooth, but I think if you're expecting something like the Red Heart yarn, this ain't it. I guess with the exception of the Insta Granny one, but that gives you like 3 squares per skein. But if you're looking at the Fair Cotton Granny or the Crochet Baby Merino Granny, then what you get is not like the Red Heart yarn. I do think it's interesting that they give you different granny squares, but the granny squares that come from that yarn are kind of just based off of vibes. And if that's the kind of thing you want, that's fine. Then sure, go for it, try it out. But at the same time, it's also $50. So, I don't know. If you get your hands on it, I think it's worth trying, but I don't necessarily think I would recommend it to folks who love the Red Heart Granny Square yarn. But I might recommend it to people who hated the Red Heart Granny Square yarn. So it all depends. To end this video, I think I actually want to at least make something with these yarns. And I have a rough idea of what I want to do, at least with the Instant Granny. So let's start that. Okay, so I put together the granny squares and you can see what I'm putting down almost. I haven't blocked them, but honestly, I don't really think I need to for this. But the only issue I'm having is how floppy these look. I kind of want to see if I can look into how to stiffen this. And I still have some leftover purple yarn too, so I kind of want to add in tassel, which will also weigh it down more. And again, I like it, I like the idea, but I just need to make it less floppy looking. And I don't know, I'm thinking maybe glue or starch, I'm not sure. I don't think just regular blocking will work because it's hanging on a hook, right? It's gonna stretch out by gravity. My issue isn't lengthwise, it's widthwise. So if I can get something to stretch it out this way without ideally having to pin it, that would be great. Because, I don't know, I like how it is so far. Okay, I ended up reinforcing this thing with some wire, which you can see poking out here, but that doesn't matter because from afar you can't really see it. It helped a little bit, but it still might need something. But you know what? I'm probably going to make that a problem that's not now. But with that, I will conclude my video here for the Katia Granny Square yarn review. Thank you for watching if you made it this far. And you know what? Have you ever tried this yarn before? Let me know down in the comments what you ended up doing with it if you have. And thank you for watching. Bye!